KK57 0503 0815 listens motionless with the cargo belt still around his neck. Only one box remains.
Evidence of treatment.
None. At least not after the initial examination.
Maybe his treatment anyway. I'm so sure didn't the footprints look like he was carried over?
Interfering with the body's position or wounds post-mortem.
I'm so sure didn't the footprints look like he was carried
They'd
over?
have to have incapacitated and carried him over. This man was more than a match for untrained dog walkers.
His hand on the tip of his chest as if in
Your
preparation.
central nervous system recognizes this gesture. It's the stations of the breath. Ecclesiastic, religious in nature, a holdout from pre-DeLorean burial rites. It takes him 2 seconds to perform.
We should start the post-mortem.
The corpse cannot feel Kim's hand on his chest. It no longer meaningfully interacts with its surroundings. A thicket of boxes and lists on red copy paper tries to answer why.
Center
Close.
examination.
The deceased wears armored boots and white briefs. The make of the briefs is Babrodin, I think. Let's see.
There's a body into his side to check the underwear label.
See, it's happening.
Babrodin, yes. Inexpensive. Size M. Color white.
The disappointment is palpable. The red-haired thing was expecting something more lurid.
Right
The
it
boots
down.
are ceramic, vitreous enamel. They are fused to his skin from blood flowing downward post-mortem. Removal of the boots is left for processing.
It would be clever of you to omit the boots altogether, sire. If you are to keep them for yourself, as you ought to, you have deserved them more than anyone else.
I'm at
The boot has a serial number. It's E50.100.100. The lines between the plates are in the shape of the alphanumerical. The number is purposefully concealed by the design.
Right it
Tattoos.
down. Stands up, feet planted on either side
The
of the
upper
body.
torso is covered in a single continuous tattoo, resembling a national pattern. It reaches from the right shoulder to the heart. The ink is blue and white. The assistant has a color photograph of the markings to be added to the case files as document A1. The photo is taken on the scene using a Trigat Mini.
Right
The
it down.
deceased has a belt for airlifting cargo around his neck, tied with a hangman's knot. Color yellow. Length 3 meters. There is a buckle on the other end. Well nourished, athletically built, measuring 1.8 meters. Generally consistent with age 42. Preservation is good. Ambient temperature below freezing.
Right it
Body
down.
hair is light brown. Distribution is consistent with age. The deceased had male pattern baldness. Hair is combed back, short.
His hair feels wet, soaked with rain, cold to touch. Not that different from a living person after a swim. The stench is suffocating. Strands of dark brown hair start sticking to your hand like thread off a rag doll's head. There's brilliantine in there. He's combed his hair back with oil.
Right it down.
Lividity is consistent with hanging. The head is congested. Contusions are present on the head, chest, and thighs. Consistent with stones thrown post-mortem. Low velocity.
Fucking low velocity. You think Kuno doesn't know what you're talking about? Velocity was fucking max. Talking shit about Kuno's velocity.
In addition, there are bite marks on the face, scalp, and chest. Consistent with predation. Ligature mark.
The lieutenant produces a small folding knife with the other hand pulling on the belt. Starts cutting into the body as the stench is hurried. After a while, it's obvious the material cannot be cut.
Still wiring. There's too much of it. We need to remove the belt so we can get to the ligature mark.
You got just the right tool for that. The chain cutters.
Oh yeah, I'm prepared. But
The hanged man lets out a joyous little bubble of rot from his nose.
good thing we got these chain cutters.
Always good to think ahead. Now,
Puts the rope squeezing the
we need to cut the belt to see the ligature mark below. Carefully, with as much precision as you can.
See, my pig is gonna fuck his head off.
No, he ain't. You pig's a boring fuck.
Look for a good
The
spell.
belt is equally tight around the whole circumference of his neck, swelling over the edges like white bread rising from the east. The knot is the weak spot. The chain cutters fit in there, steady now, like a flower arranger. 2 cuts and it should come loose. After some deliberation, you sink the cutters into the knot tying the belt together. You squeeze the rubber handles together, sweat forming on your brow.
Astounding.
Snap! The knot is slashed. Another cut and the belt falls apart like a flower bouquet, revealing the dead man's neck
Yeah.
with a dark red ligature mark around it.
The rope rises to a point, leaving a gap in the ligature mark. The suspension point is in the back of the neck.
Dylan is now closer, running his finger along the dark red groove till there's a gap.
Hemorrhaging is observed on the skin, above and below the ligature mark. The mark is well pronounced, consistent with a drop from 1 or 1.5 meters.
Write it down.
Chest is intact, normal contour. Abdomen is protuberant, pelvis intact, genitalia.
Goes down a man's
No!
underpants.
Let's get out and see!
I fucking knew it!
Genitalia is male and unremarkable. No evidence of injury. Back is symmetrical and intact. Upper and lower extremities are intact, but asymmetrical. There are combat injuries on the right hand, thigh, and hip. In addition, I see smaller, residual scars, too numerous to count, covering about 30% of his skin.
From wounds sustained over 2, maybe more decades, dispersal and accumulation indicates long and active combat duty.
Scarring is extensive, no more than the law officials.
We have a real museum here. Battles, wars.
Right.
Last item, hands.
Takes the man's right hand in his, inspects it, then moves on to the other hand.
Hands are clean. No sign of a recent struggle. I was. Maybe I'm just not seeing them. Honestly, this stench is making it hard for me to think at the moment. Ooh. That's all for the external. Well done. What next? Central nervous system. I have nothing. Do you have anything on this man's central nervous system?
Of course, there is a moral to be drawn from it, a moral to this story.
You might add the moral.
What would that be?
Makes it you
The
in.
dead man looks, too, with barely contained excitement to hear the moral of his story.
Brain is very vulnerable to compromises.
I think that may well be the moral of every story, officer.
Alright.
Good. Musculoskeletal. Purge fluid is coming from the mouth. Not injury related. Eyes and tongue protuberant. Hyoid bone. Let's see.
With his eyes almost closed, the lieutenant puts his hand on the dead man's throat and begins to massage it, gently. A rotting smell erupts from the mouth. Purge fluid runs down his lips, black and viscous. You hear cracks as the lieutenant moves his sharp fingers inside the flesh, like the creaking of an old house at night.
Yeah, jack that fucker off!
The hyoid bone is fractured. The rest of the musculoskeletal system is intact. Respiratory system.
I hunch to dip and pray. He begins to pry open the dead man's jaws. Stops to exert more force. Both hands
Oral
ease.
cavity shows no lesions. The victim has received dental implants, possibly after a combat wound. Mouth swollen. Hemorrhaging present in mucosa of the lips and mouth.
Inside the dead man's mouth.
No scream, no sigh of relief rises from the darkness inside. It's humid there, sickly sweet air, unlike anything living. You feel like you're about to throw up again, straight in that mouth of his. It's hard. Once more, you taste stomach acid in the back of your throat. A contraction. Your throat pumps a little something from your stomach and into your mouth. Inside, you see darkness. Just a mess of meat and darkness. Mute silence as always.
Hemorrhaging present in mucus. Hepatobiliary. NA.
Why don't you have anything?
Ah, Are you a hepatobiliary expert?
Examine blood to the stomach. Make sure tiredness and discuss.
Neither am I. That's it. Same for toxicology and serology, NA. Unless you have untapped reservoirs of knowledge there?
Reservoirs? No, but do they take obscure trivia and odd tidbits?
No. Cardiovascular. The body exhibits heavy lividity. Blood has gathered in the hands, feet, and neck. Hypostasis is visually consistent with the hanging. Gastrointestinal.
Exercise vibrating relief. This is the last field on the list. It looks around to the ground. All of feces.
This will do.
Digested semi-solid food in stomach. Voila.
Scopes of blood low.
What's next on the list?
And remove the dead man's boots.
Let's see. We have bite marks, contusions on the head and chest, and a ligature mark encircling the neck. You'll need 3 fields. Leave a 4th one too.
Be thorough if you want maximum results.
Head, chest, and scalp bite mark injuries. Predation by birds has caused damage to the body. Odontologist does not need to be consulted. And your opinion, officer?
In the description, there are 2 boxes waiting to be ticked.
Agreed. Next injury? Nothing. Just in case. So, the scalp bleeds from a post-mortem head injury, a stone. The injury does not have the rim of an early inflammatory response. The perpetrator on the scene has confessed to causing it post-mortem.
At maximum velocity, fucko!
Has confessed to causing it at maximum velocity.
Coagulated blood sticks to his scalp and chest, where the countless stones have hit the dead man. Beneath, the description of injury. 2 boxes.
Right. Next. A dark red abraded ligature mark encircling the neck, with a gap on the nape measuring, let's say, 7 centimeters. The hyoid bone is fractured, the cervical column intact. I see hemorrhaging on the skin, above and below the ligature mark. Depth of the mark, 1 centimeter. No signs of clawing on the neck.
Below the note, 2 customary boxes wait to be ticked. The man's head jerks to the side. The ring around his neck is visible. Think for a moment. There's time. Don't rush.
You know, fall silent.
Why do you say that?
Towards his head and just took a whack in the tongue. I think this was the injury that killed him.
Okay. Why don't you think it was fatal?
The psychic arts. Why weren't his hands tied? Big man like this, I would tie his hands when marching him to the gallows.
Honestly, I'm not sure there weren't marks on his wrist. That part got blurry for me. Stench. But you are right, I was ready to call this. Now I think we should leave it empty, at least for the time being. Let's wrap this up. I pronounce this field autopsy over.
Uses a small black plastic roll from his jacket and body bag. There we go.
It was an irregular field autopsy. We did not establish cause of death, which is supposed to be the goal of an autopsy. But personally, I do not see this as a parameter for success. We were thorough with the list of injuries too. We described them all in detail. What is there to say? Given the circumstances, it was a professional field autopsy.
Oh, I
Oh,
think
yeah. Well done, Master Detective. Maybe a drink is in order?
the drink is in
Now, you see, that worries me. You will die if you drink. You know that, don't you? You are proving a useful detective. The organization would miss you.
Oh, no.
I need a copy of that autopsy form. Then I will drive him to Faubourg for processing.
You tilt your head, also looking at the corpse. I'm sure we didn't get everything. There's always something.
Come on.
I'm gone.
I'm gone. Where have you gone? I see you're gone, but who are you?
I'm a joke. Look at me.
Nothing funny about you. Who were you when you were alive?
Killer. A motherfucker. And a killer.
Another question.
Go ahead, Coppo.
Where have you
Into
gone?
the wild pale yonder. In the past. Way out in the west.
What's happening?
What do you mean?
I'm talking
It's
to
the
you.
power of your
Black frothy liquid starts bubbling on his lips.
imagination.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead. Ask me more questions.
Do I love you?
You fucking love questions.
Why do I love questions so
Cause
much?
you're a copperoony. Look at all of them go. Do you want more questions?
Yeah, give me a comical amount of questions.
Here you go, you loony.
My name Rooney. Why do I feel like I've forgotten something terrible?
Because you have.
I'm Rooney.
Fuck no. You're no Rooney.
It's not who I am. I'm
No.
Rooney.
You're not a Harry either. You're a motherfucker. That's who you are. Rooney the motherfucker.
I hate you
Do
stinking
I
your brother.
remind you of someone?
A child born with Muller's disease, harlequinism, grown up miraculously.
A deep sea creature.
You sure I got out of that one? Coppellini. Come back later, Coppo. Amuse yourself with my frank manners and my memento mori features. If possible, also, see me in your dreams.
Okay, that was weird. Come on.
Your arms reach out and your eyes close, as if by their own volition. It's dark all around. You feel cold, slippery flesh, first with your fingertips, then under the palm of your hand.
What's this?
His face, his cheeks, his nose, his fat, swollen lips. Like a spider, your hand crawls over his features. Everything is silent. They are swollen shut. You need to really push to get in. You're not far.
Fingers in his mouth.
The oral cavity is cold and moist. A ball-like tongue attaches itself to the base of the mouth, lolling around like a scallop.
Open your eyes and look.
A vision of black and dark red death, pried open by your naked hands and studded with teeth. Looks like he's laughing. Death fumes rising from the throat, and there, in the back of his mouth, above the bell of the uvula, right in the soft palate, you see a hole, barely visible to the human eye. It is swollen shut, almost vanished. No larger than 0.4 centimeters in radius, the edges appear darkened. An abrasion collar. This is what we're after.
Yeah, abrasion colour.
Abrasion color.
I don't know what's in there. There's a pen in his hand. His notebook is open at the copy
Hugo
bag.
is silent.
With your finger.
A black trickle of liquid runs into his throat from the wound.
Put your finger
Your
in.
index fits right in there. A tight tunnel of flesh opens up. Tissue damage. Wide enough for 2 fingers. As you push both in, you reach through his mouth, right into his brainstem.
fuck is happening?
Ah, shit, see?
Turn around first.
The basal ganglia feels clumpy. What entered here has torn apart his reptilian complex. This man will never sleep again, never wake. Your fingers slide into the remains of his limbic system. There is no resistance. It's gelatinous. The slug-like structures are damaged too. The tearing extends deep into both hemispheres.
There's a cavity cut right between the
lieutenant
hemispheres.
answers with the sound of his pen on paper.
Fucking cavity, see?
His voice is harsh.
Your fingers are all the way in now, reaching toward the inside of his skull. The cavity goes further, but the entry wound isn't wide enough for the rest of your hand to follow. Your
Brilliant.
fingers reach toward his skull. His cerebral cortex feels like jelly, cold jelly. Strange fluid streams down your wrist as you push deeper until you feel it on the tip of your finger. Sharp, serrated material. The edges cut right into your skin.
Can you get to it?
There's a tiny crack, a protrusion in the cranium, right in the back of his head. Your finger
wanna
must
test my
be
luck.
pointing straight at it from the inside. The object that is in there stops just short of the skull, in the encephalus, knocking this tiny fracture into the cranium.
We have the makings of a very small exit wound here.
Lieutenant leans
Forget
closer.
about the fucking exit wound, Beano. The pig is wearing him like a fuck puppet.
Snake eyes. That's brutal.
You push your hand further in. Whatever is in there keeps rolling between your fingers as you beckon it to come out. Out comes his small folding knife. The lieutenant moves its blade across the man's skull, searching for the exit wound.
There.
Mm-hmm. Withdraw your hand 4 centimeters, please.
Ah, yeah.
Pull your fingers back
With
in
a
that.
crack, he punches the knife in the skull. Then, one more time, and one more, until the bone
Bedtime.
is loose.
It's bed.
like
Brandon,
a shell.
bedtime.
Inside,
It's bed.
feel the jelly move from his poking.
It's bed.
Brandon, stop it.
Can you push it out?
Bed.
It's bed.
You push it out.
A small flower of metal blossoms from the man's head, followed by your finger.
Go.
Beautiful.
Rifled. You may remove your hand from the victim's head now, officer. Well done.